All right, my friends, we just pressed the Let's Go Live button. It's a beautiful Monday. Welcome back. I hope your weekend was incredible and your week is off to an amazing start. Things are getting very busy over here. We got a lot of filings all over the place, but today it's trial day. Let's make sure that the tubes are connecting themselves. Before we dig into it, it looks like we're live on YouTube. Our friends on Locals are kicking in. We've got Rumble booting up. And that's all good news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today it is trial, day 12 in the Bragg prosecution. And we've got some business to attend to here. We got two segments that we're going to go through. One is about contempt. And of course, Judge Juan came out today and threatened Trump again, says, if you do this one more time, buddy boy, you're going to jail. Or he says, you might go there if it is warranted and appropriate. And so we'll read through what happened in the courtroom today. Of course, Trump came out before the day got underway, says, I've been gagged. This is ridiculous. And we'll hear from him. He talks for a little bit. Then we'll jump into the contempt portion of the day's affairs, courtesy of our friend Inner City Press, Matthew Russell Lee reporting, doing an amazing job. We're grateful for all of his work. And then we'll look at the contempt filing. All right. The contempt proceeding was last week. We were waiting for the judge's order. He dropped it this morning. So we'll read through it. And we're trying on this new name here. I kind of liked it. This morning we were going through some nicknames on our Locals member stream. And we were talking about Juan the Con Mercon. Juan Con Mercon. It kind of has like a Juan Conamera kind of a whatever that song is, So we'll talk about it. Anyways, so we're going to read through his order. All coming up before we jump into the trial activities on the day. So this is where things really start to pick up. We had two new witnesses today. The big one is this guy, Jeffrey McConney. A couple photos of him. And my gosh, I think that he was devastating to their case. So we're going to go through it. Obviously, again, we're checking back in with Inner City Press. But he was the comptroller. Okay, so he used to work for the Trump organization. He's the guy who's doing the filings. He's saying, okay, that's a business expense. That's not a business expense. Okay, that's a lunch. We're going to deduct that, whatever. He's controlling all of the little things there. And he says that he made the decision to classify this as a business record and log it accordingly, and that Trump didn't direct him to do it. Weisselberg didn't direct him to do it. So pretty devastating for their case as far as I can tell, but we'll go through it. We'll see what happened. And there was a lot that we'll go through together. That's, fresh. I just saw a little bit of today's testimony, but then we had another person come in and she was also somebody who worked at the Trump organization. So this is I know it's kind of a boring, a comptroller is going to be an interesting witness. Yeah, it's a business records criminal charge. And the idea is that Trump organized, had the mens rea, the guilty mind, and did the actus reus, the guilty act that constituted a criminal offense. Well, how can that be true if Jeffrey McConney is the person who actually made those decisions? Oops. So we'll talk about it now. There was also this business record that came in. We'll zoom in on that when it's relevant. And then I got a couple clips about Trump. Trump was speaking afterwards saying they're going to try to bog him down, lock him down in this trial for 2 more weeks from tomorrow. So we'll talk about that and more. And of course, we'll see what you have to say about all of this as soon as we're done with our 2 amazing segments. Then we'll hear from you, see what you have to say about this, take your comments, your questions, and your amazing insight. Of course, we also have our members only community, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, which is where we do streams in the morning, streams on Saturday. We have an amazing community of amazing people all getting connected and meeting each other and having some fun. We do extra content there every morning, including on Saturdays. We'd love to have you come join us. We get our bearings straight on the day, see what else is happening in stories we can't talk about here or we can't get to here. We love for any of the show reports. If you want to access our merch store, our calendar, if you want to sign up for our daily newsletter, do that at robertgouveia.com. And then, of course, we have watcherlodge.com, which is our sovereignty and self-development community. We now have our Sovereignty Saturdays on a playlist over there. So if you missed them last weekend on Saturday, go check it out, watcherlodge.com. The replays are up. And if you're joining us for our Watcher meetup in Las Vegas, baby, get ready. Get your plane tickets. Get your hotel, whatever you're doing. We're staying at Trump Hotel, June 29, 2024, and we're going to have a lot of fun there. supporting the president in this election season. So it's going to be fun. All right, all the information. Please register if you're coming. Like if you're a hard come, if you're going to be coming assuredly, if you're very certain about it, then register. Otherwise, don't. So that way we have an accurate head count. I still love you, but just, register accordingly. All right, so before we get into it, I wanted to shout out a couple individuals. Of course, we've been following along to see what Good Lawgic has been up to with his ungagging Trump efforts, and he is fighting hard. We had a Give, Send, Go that we were supporting him on last week, and he has now given us an update as of this morning, 7:20 a.m. Man, he's early. He said, here, update, timely e-filed our reply papers, all right? Timely filed hard copies at 9:50 a.m. I was informed that the clerk needs to review our papers and schedule oral arguments. So no arguments happen today, but hopefully soon. And so to support our cause, you know where to go find it. I retweeted this puppy. Sorry, Elon, don't ban me. I re-X'd it. And so you can find that on our account, but we're shouting out Good Lawgic. Also want to shout out our friends Viva and Robert Barnes over at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And they had a great stream last night, and they were giving us a little kudos over here. And so we want to, shout out their work and say thanks for the shout out, gentlemen. We appreciate our friends Viva and Robert Barnes. We appreciate Joe, Good Lawgic. You know where to find him. And so a bunch of people out there doing good work. If you're not following any of them, I encourage you to do that because they're doing good work. All right. So my friends, without any further ado, now let's get into it. Democrat judge Juan, who donated to Joe Biden and whose daughter works for Joe Biden, has held Trump in contempt again. Big surprise, right? Now he's fining him another $1,000. We all know that this is part of their effort to stop him from speaking out about this case. But the big problem here is that the next possible violation might result in incarceration. The judge has said that specifically and brought it up in court, says, Trump, I know that you used to be the president. He said, I know you might be the president again. I really don't want to put you in jail, but I'm going to have to. I'm like, okay, judge. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Stop pretending otherwise. So we're going to get into it. We're going to see what happened in court as it relates to this contempt issue before we jump into, in our next segment, the full activities of day 12. But the judge, Juan Merchan, he came out and he issued a contempt order. We'll read through it to see what he's penalizing Trump on. And of course, before we get into anything that happened in court, Trump showed up on day 12 and had something to say. He was out in front of the media saying, we're all watching this. It's extremely unconstitutional. And this is what the scene looked like before we get into the activities. So there comes Donald Trump, the president, walking in, power red Monday tie. You see his attorney, Todd Blanche, is on his backside, and he's also there in red. Alina Abba looks like she's back there. I think we saw a little Alina Abba, and I think we also saw Eric Trump. Is that Eric Trump? Kind of looks like Eric Trump, doesn't it?
As you know, they've taken away my constitutional
Let's give this man some volume, shall we?
This has never happened in this country before. It's a ridiculous thing. It's a ridiculous case. I did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. Take a look at Greg Jarrett this morning. He went on. Take a look at Andrew McCarthy or Jonathan Turley or Mark
Sharp dudes.
It's like they say there's no case
Robert
here.
Gouveia watching The Watcher.
And yet the judge has gagged me, and I'm not allowed to talk about, I guess, his total conflict. The judge is totally conflicted, and you ought to take a look at it. And I'm not supposed to be talking about it. But I am allowed to say that the judge has a conflict that like nobody's ever had before. You ought to take a look at it. He's taken away my constitutional right to speak. I was in Miami this weekend, and reporters are asking me questions, the same questions like you're asking.
Can't even talk.
And I have to say I have a gag order. I can't speak about
crazy.
it. Never happened before, ever. Number one. Number two, it's a fake trial. They have no case. And it's been absolutely proven now. They have no case whatsoever. This is Alvin Bragg doing it for political reasons for Biden. This is a Biden trial. He's a crooked president. Now, it just came out, Columbia just canceled their commencement. Axios. Columbia just canceled their commencement. That shouldn't happen. And it also came out that the protesters, many of the protesters, are backed by Biden's donors. Okay? Are you listening, Israel? I hope you're listening, Israel. Hope you're getting smart. But they're backed by Biden donors. That's where the money's coming from. And I'm not surprised at all. There's many other articles, many of them having to do with the gag order and the unconstitutionality having to do with the gag order. And it is unconstitutional, and it shouldn't be allowed. And I wish people could move a little bit quicker, the appellate courts, because the whole world is watching this, and they see what's happening. More importantly, frankly, they have no case. They have absolutely no case. It's a political hoax. It's election interference. Anything they can do, and even the witnesses they want to bring up, they have nothing to do with the case. This is a ridiculous situation. Not fair. Not fair, but we will fight. Thank you, Mr.
President. How's your defense team doing?
Thank you, Mr. President. All right, so you can see Emile Beauvais. He's back over there. We saw Susan Nicholas is back there. You see Susan's right there. It does look like Eric Trump, huh? Yeah, I think that's Eric. And, of course, there's Jason back there and some others. All right, so he's walking into the courtroom. That is the president setting the scene for us, explaining exactly what is true happening here, that this is a rigged hoax brought on by the Democrats. So let's get our bearings straight. What happened with this contempt proceeding? First thing in the morning, Trump walks into court. We're seated there. Of course, Inner City Press, Matthew Russell Lee is reporting, bringing in the details. He says, we're back here, Trump trial. Now, you know where to find him at Inner City Press. He's also got an amazing Substack that we've linked down below in our descriptions. And so the day starts. It is day 12. Trial's back in session. Trump has arrived. Blue suit, red tie, we just saw. And he's whispering with his lawyer, Todd Blanche, to his left, seated at the defense table. Emile Beauvais, Trump's other attorney, is to his right in the lead counsel cross-examiner seat, ready to go. Beauvais's been doing a great job on cross-examination, dropping the mic many times. Day is getting ready to get started. Door bursts open. All rise. Oh, God. All right, here comes this judge again. Please be seated. Clerk says this is the time set for the people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump, indictment number rigged. Judge McConney says, all right, everybody, before the court is Bragg's motion for contempt. Now, Mr. Trump, in a moment, I'm going to hand down my ruling, finding you in criminal contempt for the 10th time. And he says, going forward, the court will have to consider jail. Merchan says, Trump, now I am concerned about the ramifications of putting you in jail, but I have a job to do to compel respect for the dignity, LOL on that one, of the court. Your behavior constitutes a direct attack on the rule of law. And if I need to, I will do it. So the case on trial continues. We're going to get a new witness. Now we're going to pause. We're going to come back to that in our next segment. Let's see what the contempt order says, because this is a threat of jail against a former president, against a candidate who is currently crushing Joe in the polls. What happens if they put him in jail? What is the judge's basis for doing that? This is the motion. Judge Juan Merchan came out. He says, okay, Trump, this is my order on contempt. He says, Trump has been charged with 34 counts. We know that. $130,000 allegedly in a falsified business record that we'll get into. Now, he says on February 22nd of this year, Bragg filed a motion and issued an order hereinafter called the order. The court did. And it says you can't talk about this stuff. We're familiar. So the people moved for an order to show cause, and we already issued a contempt finding. Then a hearing was conducted April 23rd. And Trump was found liable on 9 violations. He was directed to take down the social media posts. And then, in the meantime, before the court issued its order of April, the people moved a third time by another order to find him in contempt again. They seek a $1,000 fine each time. So they say this court now, Merchan, who donated to Joe Biden twice and who has a daughter who has raised $93 million for Democrats and literally works for Kamala and Joe. This corrupt judge says, the court has considered the respective arguments of both parties and all the exhibits introduced into evidence, and here's what I find. As explained more fully by this government prosecutor named Conroy, they say Trump violated this order because he made a statement to the media in the hallway of the court. Okay, he went outside, just like we saw, and said something about the trial and about the election. They didn't like that. Court was adjourned on April 22nd at 12:40. Among other things, Trump came out and he said, and when they're going to look at all the lies that Cohen, when are they going to look at all the lies that Cohen did in the last trial? They're not. Remember, Cohen was in Tish's courtroom where she took her stinky feet out and waved them around for everybody. And Angron was like, I love it there. Trump got a whole prosecution by Tish, based on a fake lying witness named Michael Cohen. So he lied there. A federal judge said that. It's not me making it up. A federal judge said Cohen lied either there or he lied in federal court. Pick one. But it's one or the other based on his testimony. So Trump said he got caught lying in the last trial. So he got caught lying, pure lying. And when are they going to look at that? No one's going to look at that. Prosecutor says, how dare he talk badly about our witnesses? And by virtue of an interview that Trump also gave to Just the News, which is broadcast on a network called Real America's Voice, shout out. Among other things, Trump said, you know, the judge is rushing the trial like crazy. Nobody's ever seen a thing go like this. The jury was picked so fast, it's 95% Democrat, says Trump. The area is mostly all Democrat. You think of it as, you know, just a purely Democrat area. It's a very unfair situation, that I can tell you, says Trump. I don't know what's wrong with that one. Why? Because he's talking about the jury in the abstract, right? The jury as a whole. He's not talking about individual jurors. He's talking about the jury. It's a process, okay? Can you not even talk about the process? The jury was picked so fast. It's a highly Democrat area. 95% Democrats is what he says. So maybe that's the problem. He's commenting on the makeup of the jury. Still not individual jurors. So I don't know what's so problematic about that statement and how it violates the order. Let's see what the judge, how he makes that up. By virtue of an interview Trump gave to a program also called Action News, which is an ABC News affiliate in Pennsylvania, 5:56 p.m., Trump said, well, you know, Michael Cohen's a convicted liar. Fact check true. He's got no credibility whatsoever. Michael Cohen was a convicted liar. It's true. What he did is he did some pretty bad things, right? That's what Trump said. So he can't say that because I guess it's Michael Cohen's name. Now, by virtue of a press event also at 6:35, April 25th, Trump said about David Pecker, he said he's been very nice. I mean, David's been very nice. He's a nice guy. They said, you can't even say that. How dare you mention another witness's name, David Pecker? So they say, all right, judge says Trump doesn't dispute that he made the statements. Rather, he advances several defenses to support his claim that his actions are not a willful violation of the order and should not be criminally held in contempt. He says, for example, that he did not willfully violate this because it's core protected political speech made in response to attacks by Cohen, and that his comments about the jury don't violate the order because he didn't specifically reference any prospective juror or any juror in this proceeding. He was talking about the panel as in whole. And finally, he claims that the comments about Pecker are not a violation at all. He says he's a nice guy. So he's going to give us a bunch of case law. Okay, we'll fast forward through all of it. This is what the law says. Okay, we got it. Now let's apply it. He says, now the court, therefore, cannot find beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump's statements reference were not protected political speech made in response to attack by Cohen. And so likewise, this court cannot find beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump's statement in Exhibit H constitutes a violation. And so to be sure, this court, so it sounds like Trump wins on those, but to be sure, this court understands the people's argument as it pertains to this exhibit and agrees that often seemingly innocuous and even complimentary words and phrases can in truth conceal a more nefarious purpose, right? So the statement about Pecker, which is Exhibit H, Pecker's a nice guy, judge says, okay, that's not a violation. E and G were statements about Cohen. And so the E statement is when Trump said he lies. When are they going to look at the lies? And then G is Cohen is a convicted liar, right? He said, well, I can't find beyond a reasonable doubt that they were not protected. And so we understand, but facial expressions, emphasis, and even cadence are critical in reaching a determination. Now, under the circumstances, this court cannot find beyond a reasonable doubt that the statement in question constitutes some sort of veiled threat to Pecker. So they say, all right, so Trump wins on those three. Now, turning to the statement referenced in Exhibit F, they say, yep, he has been found guilty of that beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's remind ourselves, what is Exhibit F? Exhibit F is the statement that is about the jury. Exhibit F. Jury was picked so fast, 95% Democrats. He's going to hit him on that one. He says, Trump violated the order by making statements about the jury and how it was selected. our order is unambiguous. In doing so, Trump not only called into question the integrity of this proceeding, which we all are, and therefore the legitimacy of these proceedings, which are illegitimate, but again raised the specter of fear for the safety of jurors and their loved ones. What? Such concerns, he said that it's 95% Democrats, so does that mean that they're going to be taken out or something? Such concerns undoubtedly threaten to, quote, interfere with the fair administration of justice, which is a fake Democrat platitude, which is no different than, protecting American democracy. It's meaningless, and constitutes a direct attack on the rule of law. It remains this court's fundamental responsibility to protect the decency of this very indecent criminal process and to control the disruptive influences, which is Trump in the courtroom. And so this court finds Trump is in criminal contempt for willfully disobeying a lawful mandate. It's like, oh my gosh, this of all of those is like the weakest, in my opinion, of all of them, right? He also shouldn't have been found for this one. But here's the punishment. He says, as stated in its decision and order, criminal contempt is punishable by a $1,000 fine and jail not exceeding 30 days. And I'm allowed to do this. Now, because the offensive statement was made prior to this court's decision of April 30th, and because the people are only seeking a fine, this court will once again fine Trump $1,000. However, because this is now the 10th time, and that this court has found Trump in criminal contempt, spanning across 3 separate motions, it is apparent that monetary fines have not and will not suffice to deter Trump from violating this court's lawful orders. And so therefore, Trump is hereby put on notice that if appropriate and warranted, future violations of its lawful orders will be punishable by incarceration. And it is hereby ordered Trump pay a $1,000 fine, and that the offending statement, which has been posted on Trump's True Social account, be removed. Signed by Democrat donating judge and Democrat working daughter judge, Juan the Con Mercon, is here signing this order to take this out of Trump's hands. In other words, Trump is not allowed to speak at all, lest he be punished with jail. And so, interesting questions on whether this judge is ultimately someone who is corrupt and should have recused himself. This was an interesting question that came out over on CNN. Jake Tapper asked this woman, whose daddy's a judge too, don't know if she works for Joe Biden and Kamala, maybe, but she says, my daddy judge would have recused because it's the right thing to do. Of course, this judge, Juan the Con, did not.
Right. So we only have a minute left, but one thing interesting that you two have in common, in addition to being amazing reporters, is you're both the children of judges. Your dad was a federal judge. Your mom was one as well. What do you think? Well, let's start with you, Kristen, because you talked with your dad about whether Merchan should recuse.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not going to make the choice for someone else, but he did say that he would have probably recused himself, just given the high-profile nature of the
because of the daughter?
Because of the daughter, and because the fact that it was being brought up.
Right. Yeah, the daughter, $93 million for Democrats, literally working for Kamala Harris. And this judge gets to now imprison Donald Trump if he plays his cards right and tries to ensnare him in his little judicial scheme, which he's already doing as we speak. And so we're going to be here continuing to cover this. Of course, the next segment will have the rest of day 12 trial activity. So make sure you jump over there if you want to catch that. But my friends, we'll be here on this trial. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thanks for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for liking this video. Thanks for checking out some of our links down in the description below, including watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our members-only community where we do live streams in the morning and on Saturdays. We'd love to see you there and back here on the next one. All right, now it's time to get into it. All right, now it's trial time, baby. Let's get right to it. The Bragg trial implodes. A witness came out and devastated their case. This gentleman you see here is named Jeffrey McConney, and he showed up in court testifying as the former Trump Organization Comptroller. And we know that this is a business records case, falsifying business records, 34 of them. One crime is an invoice. Cohen writes an invoice, sends it over to Trump Org. They put it in their ledger. They cut a check. Every one of those actions is a different felony. Multiply that times multiple months, you get 34 charges. So this guy is responsible. All these papers that are flying around that I just described, they're coming across his desk. He's the person in charge of it. So if they're trying to prove that Trump was responsible, Trump had the guilty mind and took a guilty act to justify a criminal charge by falsifying business records, they got to get into his mind and show that he had the actual intent to do the thing, which in this case is writing on a check legal expenses or classifying these as legal expenses versus something else. So we don't know how he should have classified it. They're going to tell us that later. So Jeffrey McConney is on the stand. And as per usual, we are going over to Inner City Press. You know him, Matthew Russell Lee reporting. All of his links are in our description, his Substack and his X account. So be sure to follow him so that you don't miss a thing. We also have him starting. Now, the pre-trial motions are out of the way. Judge Mercan is now on the bench. He says, a fresh witness today. Perfect. Bragg's prosecutor stands up, says, we're ready to go, Your Honor. And so the people will be calling Jeffrey McConney. We know what he looks like. He's working his way up to the bench. And before he comes in, Trump's lawyer, Emile Beauvais, says, Your Honor, before we begin, quick thing. We'd like to address objections outside the presence of the jury. He said, well, are you asking me to dismiss the jury from in here? He said, well, I don't think it's going to take that long, so why don't we just come up to the sidebar? We'll talk to you about it. Judge says, fine. I'll have you do that at the sidebar. Come on up here. They come up to the sidebar. They're back. Now, Beauvais back at the bench. He says, Your Honor, this witness that they're about to call in, McConney, who is the former, or it might be current, we'll see, Trump Organization Controller and SVP, I'm going to guess Senior Vice President. He's there, handling a lot of the finances. Your Honor, Todd Blanche says, this witness, after this one, we have an objection to them testifying as well. So Beauvais and Blanche are both objecting. Well, we'll just have to go through these one by one, says the judge. Beauvais says, I just found out about this witness yesterday. I had no idea he was going to be testifying until today. This morning, here he is. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, says the witness after this one, we also have an objection to that one. He says, all right, fine, we'll save it for that witness, and then I'll get the objection then. He says, all right, get the jury, bring the jury in. The jury walks back in. Now, we read through the contempt order. We're familiar with that with what that looks like in our prior segment. And now we get into testimony. Government prosecutor from Bragg's office says, good morning, Mr. McConney. Can you please describe your education? And remember, this is a Trump, ex-Trump person who is under subpoena being dragged here by the government. Please describe your education. He says, well, I went to Baruch College. I was hired by the Trump Organization in 1987, and now I'm retired. When you retired, did you sign a separation agreement? He says, yeah, and the payments are now complete. But I did tax preparation for 30 years, so I know a lot about this stuff. 50 years, excuse me. Sorry to almost steal 20 years of that from you. I did tax prep for 20 years. And are you here under a subpoena? McConney says, yeah. Who's paying for your lawyer? The Trump Organization is. So you worked at the Trump Organization for a long time, right? Yeah. Who would you say ran it? He says, oh, well, President Trump. See that? Who ran Trump Organization? President Trump did. He was the brains behind it. He was my boss. And have you spoken with him since you last retired last February, Mr. McConney? No. How are the Trump Organization entities owned? Can you describe their business structure for the jury? He says, yeah, I'm happy to. Each one is separately owned. So he has different silos, and then ultimately they're all owned by the trust. Now, Mr. McConney, have you reviewed this government exhibit called 86? He says, yeah, I've seen it. What does that say at the top of that? He says, it says the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust. See that? Yeah, I see it. Who does it say is on that trust? He says, it says President Trump is on there. Donald Trump Jr. is on there, and Alan Weisselberg. They're all on the list. Now, Mr. McConney, are you the person responsible for overseeing the general ledger of the Trump Organization? And remember, the ledger is where felonies were committed. Every time someone put something in a ledger, like marked in your checkbook or on a spreadsheet, felony. Not joking you, okay? There's like a third of the 34 charges are ledger entries, because it's a false business record that was entered. It was a false invoice, it was a false check, and it was a false ledger. So certainly, if Trump is the person being charged with this, he should be the one responsible for doing those things, right? Or causing someone else to do those things. Mr. McConney, did you oversee the general ledger? Yes. And did you supervise Deb Tarasoff, who will be testifying later this afternoon? Yes, I did. Now, did the Trump Tower accounting team cover all entities? So you covered basically everything. He says, well, everything except golf courses and hotels. So a lot. Yeah, it's a big organization. Now, who enters information into this general ledger? He says, well, the accounting staff usually. And does the team also cover Mr. Trump's personal accounts? Do you handle his personal finances? He says, yeah, we do. They're coded DJT. Thank you. Now, in 2017, did Mr. Trump use a Capital One account as his main account? Mr. McConney. He says, yeah. There's a note, something about Capital One applying for federal permission to buy Discover, something like that. Now, did you interact with Mr. Trump about the reports? You're the comptroller. Did you talk to him about all this stuff? He said, well, sometimes, yeah, I'd hand deliver the reports. One time, President Trump told me, you're fired. When he got off the phone, he said, okay, look, you're not fired, but pay attention to my bills, okay? Don't just pay them. And Trump is a known kind of stickler for the finances, right? And I've read this in multiple places, that he likes to see basically every check that comes through. He doesn't have somebody writing checks and paying money out. It's very interesting, actually. Very tight financial controls. So don't just pay him, he says. Now, the reason why the government is trying to dig in on this is to show us that Trump has very strict financial controls. So Trump knows what he's doing, right? If Trump is monitoring this, then it is something that he has intention or knowledge about. So they're trying to show Trump is like a micromanager. Watch. Did the Trump organization ever cut a check if no invoice was submitted? So did the organization as a whole? He says, no, never. We always had an invoice, right? They send a bill, we always pay. Never. Now, who has the authority to approve the invoices once they do come in? Well, a couple people. He says President Trump did. Eric Trump did. Don Jr. also did. Ivanka, when she was working with us, she did. A few other people could have permission to sign these off. And now, how many signatures would be required on the checks? And this will be interesting too. How many signatures on the checks? McConney, the comptroller, says, well, if it's below $10,000 an invoice, only one signature is required. If it's over $10,000, we generally have two signatures that are required. And if a lawyer receives a payment, is that payment taxable? He said, well, if it's an outside attorney, I assume so. And McConney is sipping from a water bottle. I think so. I assume it's taxable. I don't know. Talk to them. Did you review the files on this thumb drive earlier today, Mr. McConney? Much earlier today. Yeah, I did. And have you emailed with Michael Cohen? He says, yeah, I have. Your Honor, we asked to admit these exhibits. Beauvais says, objection, Your Honor. We object to that one and that one. Judge makes a decision, probably admits them. Government back to McConney, comptroller. Mr. McConney, are you familiar with Michael Cohen? He says, yeah, we both worked there. I spoke with him by the coffee machine sometimes. And what was his position there at Trump? Well, he said he was a lawyer. And did he ask you at some point to be reimbursed? He did, yeah. He said sometime in January 2017, Michael Cohen came in and said, I got to be reimbursed. Now, he was supposed to leave, says the comptroller, on January 20th, 2017, but it got moved to January 27th. He had some complaints about last year's bonus. He wanted more money or something, so I don't know, it got postponed. Now, I want to show you Exhibit 35 to the witness, to you, Mr. McConney, to the court and to the parties only. Okay, so he's kind of showing this to the Trump side. You guys see this? Yeah. What is this, Mr. McConney? He says, that's a bank statement that Allen Weisselberg gave me. Allen Weisselberg, of course, is the Trump CFO, who's currently in jail for perjury because they said he lied about something in the Tisch trial, which he didn't. Prosecutor says, did you keep it in the files, that bank statement? Did you keep it in the files? Yeah, I did. It was in a book in a locked drawer by my office. Thank you. Now, what about this exhibit? Did you take these notes while Mr. Weisselberg spoke to you? He says, yeah, I did. They were stapled to the bank statement. He said, well, what is this bank statement? He says, it's Essential Consultants. It's First Republic bank account. It's $130,035 to Keith M. Davidson Associates, PLC. $130,000. That's Allen Weisselberg's handwriting. It says grossed out, then divided by 12. So grossed out and then divided by 12. And that might be this document. So let's see if that is what this one is. So this was released very recently today. Let's full screen this one and see if we can open this in a new tab. And this file is a little bit strange. Okay, that's why. So, all right. So here it is. Let's see if here's what we can say. Grossed out 130, grossed up. There's some line items here. It looks like this is an account statement, First Republic Bank. So if somebody printed this out, Simplified Business Checking. It's Essential Consultants LLC, care of Michael Cohen. See that there. 24 hours. Here is just, it looks like a bank statement. It says how much money, the beginning balance. And then there's a total withdrawals and debits, 130,000. Ending balance, $965. So here's the account activity. So there's a credit of 131,000. And then there's a wire transfer fee, and then the total withdrawals and debits. So somebody moves 130 grand in, somebody takes 130 grand out. And then there's some handwriting here. You can see it says plus 50 grand paid to Red Finch for tech services, totaling $180,035. And so there's some scribbles here in the margins, $130,000. Looks like it says grossed up to something. And handwriting's a little bit tough to read, but let's see what he testifies to. So confidential, this looks like it's the item they're talking about. So let's continue. We're back with Inner City Press reporting. Now, why was it $180,000 is what they said. Why did it come out to this total? You can see the number down here. Why was it $180,000? He says, well, there was $130,000 to Michael Cohen, and then $50,000 went over to Red Finch. What does this grossing up mean, Mr. McConney? He says, well, that's to cover taxes. You know, there's federal taxes, New York state taxes, New York City taxes. It's a lot expensive. We've taxed enough already. Well, where does Mr. Cohen live? He says, you want the address or no? Okay, he lives in New York City. Okay, thanks. And so, long story short, to pay that amount, is it true you were wiring what, $35,000 a month? He says, yeah, we'd wire it each month starting February 1, 2017. And that's what we do. Now, did you take any notes? He said, I want to introduce People's Exhibit 36. Put the notes up on the screen. He says, yeah, those are my notes. I wrote that. It says bonus 50,000, then 180,000, then grossing up the 180 for taxes. So it's 420 grand. So there's a wire from Trump. The government says, okay, well, with the grossing up, was this an expensive reimbursement like others? Was this like an expensive one? He says, no. No. With the grossing up, was this an expensive reimbursement like others? No. No. Ordinary, no. So let me show you this exhibit. Trump's lawyer, objection. Judge says, okay, please approach, come up. So the both of them go up to the judge's bench. And they're back. Now, it looks like it's overruled. So maybe objection overruled. So the prosecutor picks back up. Okay, so I can talk about this. So you don't think it was an expensive reimbursement, huh? No? Okay, how about this? Why don't you read this one? Well, what did you say here? Read this to the jury. He says, well, I asked for an invoice. A lot of people ask for money. We need an invoice. So Michael wrote to me. Michael wrote back in his email. Michael said, remind me of the monthly amount. I replied, it's $35,000. Then he wrote, okay, pursuant to the retainer agreement. So McConney says, look, I need an invoice. Okay, I'm not cutting this check. I'm not paying him 35 grand a month without an invoice. We always get invoices here. So I asked for an invoice. He sends Cohen an email. I need you an invoice. Cohen says, well, for what? What's the monthly amount? He says 35 grand. Cohen says, okay, pursuant to the retainer agreement, I'm hereby owed 35 grand. And he says, okay, that's great. It's an invoice. It's like an email. Okay, fine. Files that as an invoice, makes the fee. But then Alan wrote to me and he said, okay to pay per agreement with Don and Eric. Alan wrote to me and he said, okay to pay per agreement with Don and Eric. Huh. Don, is that Donald Trump? Question, Mr. McConney. Who was Don? Oh, that was Don Jr. Oh no, you're kidding. Yeah, not Trump. Oh. Did you forward that to the legal department? No. Would a legal retainer payment usually be sent to the legal department? He says, yeah, it would. But you posted this to legal expenses. Is that right? McConney, are you the person who classified this as a legal expense? Yeah, I did. I did it. The code was 51505, so I did it as a legal expense. Now, did the Trump organization's outside accounts have access to this? So we better have Trump ordering him to do that, right? So he did it. Trump didn't do it. Trump didn't say this is a legal expense, rig this or whatever. He didn't say anything like that. This guy did. Now, the prosecutor just got him to say that. I did it. Did the Trump organization's outside accounts have access to this? He says, no, not directly, but through the reports they did. And did Mr. Cohen invoice each month? Yes, he did. Every one of those invoices is a felony charged in this case. Every invoice. January, felony, felony, felony March, felony April, and on. So, Mr. McConney, what did you do in this time frame for checks? Okay, so Cohen sends you an invoice. What did you do for checks? Well, we'd have to get them down to DC for signature. It was brand new for us. So I wrote, DJT needs to sign check. Right? If you ever work at a business, that would always happen, right? When I was running my law firm, people would bring me requests for a check and bring me the checkbook, and I'd write them a check. I offer 37C. Objection! Mercant says overruled. Now, these are more 37 series exhibits, and Trump's defense is objecting to this. Objection noted, overruled. Please continue. Government says, okay, Mr. McConney. Oh, what's this? He says, well, these are emails with Michael Cohen, Deb, and Alan, and me. There's invoices I see here. Some of them are from May. And so then I told Deb in another email that you're looking at to put a stop on check 2639 because we couldn't find it. Government says, can you please read this one? He says, sure. This is an invoice in July. Michael Cohen wrote to Alan Weisselberg, the CFO. Cohen says, hope you're enjoying the summer despite the nonsense. And he sent the invoice. And how about this one? Okay, that's a felony, right? Cohen sends an invoice, felony. And this one, August, another felony. This is from 30 Rockefeller Plaza. And here, September. In this one, Michael wrote that he hoped Alan's Florida home wasn't damaged by the hurricane. So Cohen's like, here's another invoice. Give me my 35 grand. So he sends these nice little messages. Hope your house is still there. Where's my, thanks for my money. And sends the invoice. And so when Alan forwarded it to you without any message, did you take it to mean pay it? Yes, I did. Amazing. So again, Michael Cohen is sending it to Alan, who's then forwarding it to McConney, who is then paying it. Where's Trump? I don't know. Government says, did the payments stop in December? He says, yeah, they did. After it was paid in full. We didn't need to pay him anymore. 35, a grand a month is plenty. He's caught up. Judge says, okay, let's take a break. And so we'll pause here to shout out Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, for doing this amazing reporting, giving us the opportunity to peer inside this courtroom. Of course, you can follow him, Matthew Russell Lee, ICP.substack.com, and on X at Inner City Press. We're back from the break. Government says to McConney, the Trump org comptroller back on the stand, he says, what is this printout up here on the screen? Well, that says which company paid which invoice. So this has DJT, which has some of his personal accounts, and it's got checks to Michael Cohen up to, it says, January 5, 2018. So the total for 2017 was $440,000 to Michael Cohen. Trump's attorney, Emile Beauvais, objection. Overruled. Mr. McConney, and in this wider database of legal expenses, were there any others involving Michael Cohen? This wider base of legal expenses. Any other bills that went to him? No. And what's this here? He says that's the detailed general ledger where all those felonies are. Okay, invoice is a felony, check's a felony, the ledger is a felony. That's the detailed general ledger that we have for Trump Organization. You see this column here where it says the purpose? Does it say legal retainer here? He says, yeah, it does. And are you aware of IRS Form 1099s? He says, yeah, of course. We generate them. We send a copy to the recipient. We send a copy to the IRS. That's how we pay our vendors. And what's this, Mr. McConney? Well, that's a 1099 right there. Same one you were talking about. In fact, that's the one from 2017 from the Trump Revocable Trust, right? DJT Revocable Trust to Michael D. Cohen. Box 7 says non-employee compensation. He's not an employee, he's a contractor. He's a 1099. Are you aware? This is the government. It's like, okay, thank you for proving all of this for us, that Cohen is a contractor. Now, are you aware of the Office of Government Ethics, or OGE? McConney says, yeah, I am. And did you file for Mr. Trump? Yes, I did. I filed Form 278-E. It's a conflict of interest form. Trump filed in 2015 all the way to 2020, and then 2020, since then, I don't know. He was a candidate, and he's a candidate now. Government says, I offer all of these into evidence, all of those documents. Objection, Your Honor. Judge calls him up to the bench. Please approach. They whisper, whisper, whisper. Judge, again, overruled. Okay, all Trump's objections, just to be clear, overruled, overruled, overruled. Government says, all right, please publish that form to the jury. So they take that Form 278-E, it's a conflict of interest form that went back to the Government Accountability Ethics Office. Put that up on the screen. Now, what does that say, Mr. McConney? He looks at it. It says, Michael Cohen sought reimbursement. And what range was this? Looks like there's a range in this form. Yeah, this was between $100,000 and $250,000. So they marked the range between that range. And you might say, well, okay, that might be a problem, right? Because the total payment amount was much higher than that. But then they would say, well, that's not the total cost of the services. That's probably, taxes and other items in there. But anyways, what was that consistent? So there it is, right? Was that consistent with the $180,000 you discussed with Weisselberg? He says, yeah, it was. So I thought the prosecutor was going to make the point that, well, didn't you pay him $450 or $440, whatever the number was? And yeah, he says, no, that's what the ultimate bill was. So we discussed with Weisselberg. But so I guess the prosecutor will make the point. I think the point he's trying to make is that this is fraudulent, right? That they paid ultimately $400,000 out, but $180,000 is what they're putting on the records. Honestly, I think it's weak. This guy was not good for them. So, all right. First of all, doesn't finger Trump in any way, shape, or form throughout this entire direct exam. So they're going to have to try to make that up with Deb when we get to her. But Trump's attorney, Emile Beauvais, is back up, man. And this guy knows how to cross. We saw that last week. Emile Beauvais says, good to see you, Mr. McConney. Thanks for being here. So you rarely spoke to President Trump. Is that right? He says, yeah, that's right. I did not speak to him often. And he never asked you to make these entries. Is that right? Trump never asked you to make any of these entries at all. He did not. Thank you, Mr. McConney. He did not. Okay, well then Mr. Weisselberg must have, right? So Trump told Weisselberg and Weisselberg told you, right? Hey, Mr. Beauvais says to McConney, and it's true also that Mr. Weisselberg didn't tell you President Trump told him to do it, right? No. Mr. Weisselberg didn't tell you that Trump told me to do it. So as far as you know, it came from Weisselberg. So here is Michael Cohen's signature block from Emile Beauvais. He says, does it say fixer on here, Mr. McConney? He says, no, it doesn't say fixer on there. So Michael Cohen was basically a vendor to President Trump, right? He wasn't Trump's fixer at all. He was just a vendor, just like the copy guy. Yes. And Cohen said that he had an outside firm. Is that right? He says, yeah, he did. And so you don't know if Michael Cohen did any legal work for President Trump with regard to this person called Summer Zervos, do you? He says, no, I don't. And when you were working there for the Trump organization, things were in flux, weren't they? In other words, President Trump's office was in D.C. at the time. It was not in New York City. Is that right? McConney says, I don't remember seeing him in New York at all. Oh. Now, Your Honor, I'd like to show Defense Exhibit H10. So the defense is now going to try to show an exhibit. Prosecutor, objection. May we approach, Your Honor? They go up to the sidebar. Trump's trying to introduce evidence. Your Honor, I wanted to introduce this. Remember, you introduced all their crap, all their evidence, got admitted. You overruled us every time we objected, so let us have this in. He says, get the hell out of my bench. Objection sustained. You don't get that evidence admitted. You can't show that to the witness. Defense moves on. That's fair trial. There were two trustees, right, Mr. McConney? One of President Trump's sons and Allen Weisselberg. Is that right? He says, yes, that's right. And you understand that negative news would hurt the business. You understand that, right, McConney? Well, he said, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a marketing guy, so I don't know. But the Trump organization did hire marketing people, didn't they? Yeah. And the MDS system, can you describe that for us? He says, yeah, that was a system that we used to enter things into the ledger, right? It's like a QuickBooks system or something. So what is this? Oh, it's a business expense. So this is a utility bill. This is a dining and entertainment, right? This is a personal. So the MDS system, it was kind of antiquated, right? Like it had old categories that you would use. He says, yeah, I did. Now I want to talk about your handwritten notes, says Beauvais. You wrote X2 for taxes. We saw that in the form. He says, yeah, I did. I was writing a bunch of stuff. You know, Alan was like rattling things off and I had to write it down. So he's saying, I'm like scribbling it down. But Weisselberg was not a tax accountant, right? He didn't do taxes. No, he was not. Thank you. Now, this First Republic document that we got, you just filed it, right? He says, yeah, I filed that. So you don't know anything about Red Finch, do you? He says, no, I don't. And retainer agreements, like they can be verbal, can't they? You don't actually have to have a document. You can have a verbal retainer. I don't think it's best practice to do it that way, but you certainly can. He says, yeah, they can. You can have verbal retainer agreements, so it's no problem. Now, the first three payments that came out here were paid out of the Trump, right, organization or Trump accounts. I don't know what accounts. And the remainder came from President Trump's personal account. Is that right? He says, yeah. And this 1099 to Cohen, it doesn't have any space to distinguish legal fees versus expenses incurred, right? You know, there's no real place to change the label. No, it doesn't have any place for that. And so this Office of Government Affairs form, on the form that the prosecutor asked you about, doesn't it say that the payment to Michael Cohen was disclosed in there? Is that right? He says, yeah, it's disclosed. It's right in there. The payment to Cohen's in the form. Nothing further. Boom. Government's back up. They say, okay, Mr. McConney, do expense reimbursements usually get disclosed to the IRS? He says, no. And have you come to know that there were things Mr. Weisselberg kept you in the dark about? Objection, overruled. He says, yes. Right? So in other words, they're going to try to blame this on Weisselberg now. So we know how this is going. So Weisselberg will be the connection. And when Weisselberg comes out and says Trump never told him to argue, or Trump never told Weisselberg to concoct some conspiracy here, they're going to say that Weisselberg is a perjurer because they ensnared him in a perjury trap in the Tisch case. They had to get their side a perjury victory because they have a perjury loss. They have a -1 with Michael Cohen, so they needed to get a -1 on the other side. So then they went and ensnared Weisselberg, so when they bring him in, they'll say, you're a liar, though. Isn't it true Trump told you to? No, he never did. You're a liar. And that's where this will go. So they say, yeah, there were times where he kept me in the dark. So this guy's innocent, but it's Weisselberg who lied to him, and Trump was orchestrating Weisselberg. But recross, Emile Beauvais comes out, says, this was all disclosed to the IRS. Is that right? He says, yes, it was. Nothing further. Thank you, Judge. So Judge says, okay, we'll take a break. And we are done now with Mr. McConney. And I don't know how that was very useful for the government. This sounds to me like this guy did all of the falsifying a business record, and he was following protocol. And it creates a major gap between any of the criminal conduct and Trump. This guy literally entered the record differently. And he was following protocol. So it's going to be very curious to see what Weisselberg says and how they try to spin that. But our break is over. We're back. Todd Blanche says, Your Honor, half an hour ago, we learned who the next witness is. So the government is so shady in their practices that they just hide the witnesses and they spring them out at the last minute. It's very detestable behavior. It's not honorable. They have no honor. Half an hour ago, we learned who the next witness is, and we have some objections. I hope they do the same going back. They shouldn't tell them who their witnesses are. Invoices from Michael Cohen are not business records of the Trump Organization, okay? If she stamped them, sure. So this next witness is going to come in and she's going to help talk about documents. Mercan says, well, I'm going to allow those documents in as res gestae. They're part of the crime. So they're business records that he says are a part of the crime. Government, they say on People's 42, Todd Blanche, the defense says, on their Capital One records, we believe this witness is a Trump Organization employee. And they say it is. Yeah, it's Deb Tarasoff. And we're going to talk about canceled checks. And the judge says, okay, well, I'm going to allow the checks in, so bring the witness in. So she comes in. All right, so Deb Tarasoff is next on the bench. Trump trial, we're in day 12. This will be our final witness for the day. She is now coming in. Deb Tarasoff walks into the courtroom, raises her right hand. Prompt, tell truth, I do. Please be seated. Ms. Tarasoff, government prosecutor says, are you employed? She says, yeah, I am. I work with the Trump Organization. She says, it's a real estate company. Shout out to Deb. It's a real estate company. Oh, that's just great. Oh, that's so great. It's Matthew Colangelo who's leading this prosecution. And of course, he's gone after Trump Organization for years, ever since Trump got elected, when he was with Tish's office. Yeah, I do with the Trump Organization. It's a real estate company. Ever heard of it? Who's the owner? She says, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Mr. Trump. Man, Deb's got an attitude, a good one. I love it. I love it. What's your education? She said, well, high school. Then I worked at Liberty Mutual. Then for a lawyer who dealt with real estate, parking lots situation. Then I cared for my girls. And finally for the Trump Organization. And how many entities are in the Trump Organization, Deb? She says, a bunch. And how about Mr. Weisselberg? What was his management style like? So, well, he had his hands in everything. And did he interact often with Mr. Trump? He says, yeah, he did a lot. And what system did you use? She says, we use the MDS system. So I would see invoices, I would cut a check, and then I'd mail it. And up to what amount could Allen Weisselberg approve? So Weisselberg, if it's a bill for $10,000, he can approve that. Above that, you got to go get a Trump family member. Don Jr. can approve it. Eric or Mr. Trump can approve it. Strict financial controls. And how would you get the Donald J. Trump DJT checks signed? And remember, in a business, you might have just checks that are signed. So we would do that at our law firm all the time. We just sign a bunch of checks and they were used for discovery, right? So if the team needed it, we'd say, we need discovery checks for this week. Sign a bunch of them. Okay. Then they just give out the checks, right? So, $25 to go get body cams from the city of Scottsdale, $50 to go get, whatever else report we need from whatever entity. So, so maybe they're signing a bunch of stuff and then handing them out based upon the approval process. Let's see. So how would you get, in other words, Trump is not bothered every time they need a check. They batch them up. So how would you get the check signed? It says, well, I would take them to Rana. Rana's already testified earlier in this trial. She was Trump's, right-hand woman. And then she would take them in for Mr. Trump to sign them. Now, would he ever refuse to sign a check? Yeah, he would. He would write void on it. And how would you know it was him? Well, he would use a Sharpie, so I'd recognize it. I'm handing you up a thumb drive, Deb. Objection. Judge says, I don't care. They're admitted. Get them in. Shut up, Todd. Now, how did you get the checks down to Mr. Trump in D.C.? How'd you guys handle that? Well, we use FedEx. Now, how about People's 37-8? The government says, I want you to blow up that top email. Did you get that email, Deb? See, I got that one. February 14, 2017. I was told to pay and to post legal expenses. I was told to pay and post legal expenses. Now, how about this $70,000 check? Number 138, who signed it? $70,000 check. Eric and Alan Weisselberg signed that one. And I don't know if that's a part of a, if that's a check to Cohen, might be. And it's the two signatures again. And how about this email? This email came from Jeffrey McConney. We just heard from him. And he said to pay it. And so there's my stamp. And so I stamped it and I paid it. And this check, did you put a stop payment order in on this one? Yeah, I did. So they're going through a bunch of financial records. They take a break and we're back. And he says, well, while we were talking about those previously, the prosecutor says, I think I missed one. What is this one? And Deb says, well, it's just another invoice. That's June 2017. And how much is that check for? She says $35,000. $35,000. Okay, I have nothing further. Okay, so I guess Eric and Alan Weisselberg signed one check. Here's one. How much is the check for? $35,000. Maybe Trump signatures on that. I have nothing further. Okay, great. We have more checks. So Mercan says, okay, defense, it's your witness. Over to you. Deb, hi. Thanks for being here again. Thanks for your work at Trump Organization. You're doing a fantastic job. Sorry you have to be here. Would you describe the Trump Organization as a family business? She says, oh, yes, definitely. And was President Trump around less while he was running for president? Yes, he was. Now, the checks that we just went through for the last hour and a half, he starts laughing. He's like, oh, gosh, that you just ran us through. Thank you for that. Sorry they made us go through that. They are all signed, aren't they? Except the one that got lost? Yes. But you weren't present there when President Trump talked with Mr. Weisselberg, were you? No, I was not. No more questions. Now, Mr. Tarasoff, you may step down. Counsel, please approach. When they're up at the bench, Trump is talking with Susan Nicholas, defense attorney, who slides over, and the judge comes back out and says, all right, jurors, this is a good time to break. And so we're going to break early today. Jurors, thank you for your service today. Have a great night. Please don't read or talk about this case. Jurors leave. Government says, Your Honor, before we break, we got to address a couple things. First of all, we'd like to recall a witness to go over some tweets and some truths. We called Miss Longstreet on Friday, and I think that was the paralegal. Remember the government brought in their paralegal who just sifts through Truth Social all day? Not a bad job. Before Hope Hicks, and they're going to bring her back, but she has more. They say it's just not true. The counsel has not had notice of our exhibits, by the way, so they know what we're talking about. And Todd Blanche says, Your Honor, get out of here. I'm looking at the January 2024 witness list, okay? Miss Longstreet is not on it. They should have told us that she had reviewed more posts. Judge says, when are you going to call her? They said, well, we have another witness tomorrow on Tuesday, so probably Thursday or Friday. Judge says, fine. All right, government, how much longer do the people have? He says, roughly 2 weeks starting tomorrow. Judge says, fine. See you tomorrow. And that's the day. Day 12 of the trial now in the can. We got Matthew Russell Lee, icp.substack.com, at Inner City Press on X, doing some amazing reporting for us so we get to peer inside the courtroom. We're grateful to Matthew Russell Lee, and do your best to follow him and support him if you can. Of course, that is day 12 of the trial. Trump came out after the trial was over. He had a couple things to say, got a couple clips here that we'll take a look at. He says that they are now wanting to keep him off the trail for 2 to 3 more weeks. All part of the plan.
The government just said that they want 2 to 3 more weeks. That means they want to keep me off the trail for 2 to 3 more weeks. Now, anybody in there would realize that there's no case. They don't have a case. Every legal scholar says they don't have a case. This is just a political witch hunt. It's election interfering. And this is really, truly election interference, and it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace.
He's right about that. We have one other clip from the president, and let's take a look at what this says. He also came out talking about the gag order, and here is what he said.
And it's a disgrace. And then you have the other thing that maybe is even more disgraceful is the gag order, where I can't basically, I have to watch every word I tell you people.
Yep.
You ask me a question, a simple question, I'd like to give it, but I can't talk about it. Because this judge has given me a gag order and said you'll go to jail if you violate it. And frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day. But what's happening here is a disgrace, and the appellate courts ought to get involved. And it's a disgrace.
The Constitution is more important than their threats of jail. And of course, that's what he's fighting for. That's why we're covering this. That's why we're grateful that you are here and joining us, my friends. We're going to continue to cover this. We'll be back here tomorrow for day 13. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for inviting a friend or family member to come on over here and join us so that we can together see what's actually happening inside the courtroom. And again, thank you to Inner City Press, Matthew Russell Lee. All of his links are in our description below, his Substack and his X. So please go on over there and follow him. We're going to be back here on the next one. All right, my friends. That is it for us on the day. A little bit of a shorter trial today. So we'll jump in, get your thoughts, get your questions, and then we'll be back tomorrow for day 13. We got 2 good segments done. I thought the trial was thrown way off keister here. I think that this guy says, I did it. It wasn't unusual. It was regular business, and it came from Weisselberg. Not anything that fingers Trump in the actual creation of the ledger entry. So it's wild that this is even a case that is in trial at the moment, but of course, we're going to be covering it. We've got Trump now threatened with incarceration. This trial is going off the rails. I think that they are scrambling to make it mean something. And so this gives their side a lot more to kind of salivate over. A lot of bad news today when they have no evidence. So they come out and they say, Trump could be in jail any minute. MSNBC, they'll all be doing cartwheels over there. We also had a good update with Good Lawgic. He's doing some good work over there. Make sure you're subscribed to his channel. Of course, you know where to find him. He's also on X at The Following Pro. We have Aviva and Barnes also paying a lot of attention to these issues, and so we're grateful to them as well. But now, my friends, let's hear from you. Of course, as soon as we're done, we are going to go over to our members-only community and debrief over there, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We do streams in the morning, every morning, and on Saturdays. We'd love to have you join us. Let's see who is here joining us on the day. And what's up, Donut Mind Me? And we got K-Bean clipping for us on the day. What's up, Lori? Welcome to our newest. Welcome as a member on YouTube. Great to have you. Lori G in the house. Thanks for becoming a member, Lori. And let's see, what else do we have? We've got Joan K. What's up, Joan K? Says, thanks for keeping us up to date. Thanks for joining us, Joan. Membo for 6 months, 3 months to a baby, halfway of a year. Thank you, Joan, for being a membo for 6 months. Very nice to have you. The Blind Lawyer over on Rumble. What's up, The Blind Lawyer? Says, the real reason this trial is not televised is because if real attorneys were able to watch live the amount of constitutional violations would be seen, this is a fraud. I agree with that. I think that it's oversight. It's transparency. They don't want that to happen, especially in these cases. I mean, the federal courts, I can understand because it's kind of like a federal rule, but the state rules, there's a lot more movement on opening things up, making exceptions, right? This judge is allowing all sorts of insane things to happen. He could easily allow cameras to come into this courtroom, but they don't want it to happen because they'd rather do all of this under the dark of night because they're little tyrants. What's up? Super Buff Shaft is here. Says 2020 Arizona election ballot manipulation is triple verified. Watch later when you have the time. Looks like a good one on Rumble. How conservatives hold the keys from Super Buff Shaft. What's up? Looks like a good link. This one from Crash is over on Locals. Says, call me a cynic. The tag fits me perfectly. The tagline imploded means nothing. Zip, zero, nada. Did I leave out squat? I apologize. This trial is in New York. Facts, reality, truth, none of that matters. Guilty! TDS is a malignancy that is nearly impossible to combat. It's a good comment, Crash. I think you're right on a lot of that. Chubby says, given the recent clown show celebrity visit to the White House, I submit the new name for Mercon is Conning Juan Fradobi. That's pretty good. If for the May the 4th stuff, yeah. I'm sure Karine would just love it. She'd probably bring in Mark Hamill. They'd probably just giggle themselves to death. CA Smirk says, Bernie is saying this Gaza-Israel conflict is Biden's Vietnam War. Interesting. Wow, that is an interesting parallel. Yeah, is an interesting parallel. A lot of action on that. We talked about some of that this morning. We've been getting into a lot of that stuff in the mornings. And it's been interesting times. What's up? We got Spuds. 14 months as a membo. Chili Juan Carne is another good potential nickname because he's a meathead, like meat. Like because he met with Chutkin and he meets with Democrats or something. The blind lawyer says, never threaten a judge, but complaints are a valid recourse of action and they go to the Commission on Judicial Misconduct. And the blind lawyer dropped some contact info there for the government account. Yeah, definitely not a threat. They'll throw you in jail for that very, very, very quickly. But like, you know, people like Elise Stefanik, they've given us a good template for how they can file complaints and they've done that. So follow that model. I think you'll be just fine if you have, you know, if you're a New York person and you have some standing in New York, that you have a problem with bad judges. What's up, Lord C? Says Trump should just ignore the gag order. It's not like they're going to play fair anyways. If he did, I think it would be a kind of a watershed moment. Like we'd have a constitutional crisis on hand. And a big part of me thinks that he is benefiting now by being the martyr, right? By letting everybody see the corruption that's happening. If he just, sort of flagrantly violates it, then they'll say he's an insurrectionist and all the things. But by being a martyr, I think he gets a lot of sympathy and people can see just how corrupt it is. But I understand your point, Lord. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the nice dono. We got Sandy says, the court system only exists because we obey it out of respect. Yes, it's exactly right. It's called credibility and legitimacy. And they don't have any other mechanisms, really. They have judicial review as their constitutional power of the court system. Congress has the power of the purse. Executive branch has the executive enforcement capabilities. Congress doesn't have much. They have judicial review. That's it. So if they don't have legitimacy and credibility, they have no power. And they're wrecking their own legitimacy and credibility, which is shocking that they would do that to themselves. But they hate Trump so much, they're so mental that they don't care. Says we are teetering on the edge as a country of losing our entire system of justice. 100%. It's basically gone as far as I can tell. If you can have a justice system, and it's not only, like if the conduct that can happen in Fulton County is considered to be justice and everybody just looks the other way. Okay. All of the other lawyers in every other part of the country, like the ABA, the American Bar Association, and all of these other groups are just like, oh no, it's fine. La 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 la. Whatever's happening there is fine. Fannie can do whatever she wants. It's bedlam. That is not justice. And if you don't have a justice system, you don't really have a society anymore because the people with the power can do justice in their own eyes. And we're watching that happen. So not a snowball's chance this country would accept the jailing of Trump. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there would be a real big problem. And honestly, I think Trump is probably trying to avoid that. He's like as a good man who doesn't want to see the country shred itself to bits, right? He's trying to tap dance around this issue, and it's a mess. Hey, Jigum says laughter is good medicine. Here are some members of the Watcher fam in the house. There's your boy with that nice hairdo. Look at that right there. Man, looks good. Maybe I'll try that on. What's up, Watcher fam in the house? A lot of amazing people on that image. Sandy says, I had to LOL today when the prosecution said 2 weeks for tomorrow for their case in chief. They sure rushed it. It was going to be 6 weeks. They're rushing to get a guilty verdict before SCOTUS rules. The trial should never have happened. With like some presidential immunity, you think presidential immunity comes out and undermines the case, so they're trying to just get it done? I don't know. We'll see. Chubby says, do you think I'd be able to sue conning Juan Fraudobi for damages from all the eye rolling caused every time he declares unconstitutional gag order as lawful? Damages, permanent damage. If yes, what are my chances to win? Probably low. I'm hoping enough to buy myself, Paris or a motorcycle, either one. Is Paris worth anything right now? Isn't it on a fire? Do you want Paris? I thought it's like I've been on fire for like 3 years. Do you want it? I'd get the motorcycle. A lot less headache than dealing with all the French. So, yeah, very, very, if your eyes are permanently disfigured, like when mom said, if you sit too close to the TV, maybe you'll have a claim. Hey, Lemon Z, what's up? Says smash that thumbs up button. Thank you, my friend Lemon Zinger, for reminding everybody to do that. And that was over. On Rumble. This one from Sandy says, Inner City is the only one worth watching. Other people do a worse job. If he has to report DJT favorably, it always comes out with conclusory statements of his opinion before posting the actual testimony. Yeah, Inner City Press is about as verbatim as I think we can get. And he does such a good job. I'm really grateful for his reporting. CGI Joe, what's up, CGI Joe? Wild Bill is coming in as a membo. 5 membos gifted courtesy of CGI Joe. Melissa's here. Archangel's here. Loki Mischievous and Grant are all coming in the house courtesy of CGI Joe. Bringing in the membos. Thank you, CGI Joe. What's up? Frank B's in the house as our newest supporter. Welcome aboard, Frank. We'll see you in the morning. We got Kalim H bringing in the Sentinel. What's up, the Sentinel? Coming in. That's a cool name. CGI Joe with 5 more membos. Original Ghoul. Ron Hastings is here. GE's coming in. Harley Girl D and Paw from EP all in the house. 5 more membos courtesy of CGI Joe. Thank you, CGI Joe. And welcome, new membos. Hey, what's up? Glenn Croy brought in some new membos too. Thank you, Glenn. Michael B, LaDonna A, James B, Tom S, and Digital Soldier in the house. From Glenn Croy. Thank you, Glenn, for being a membo and bringing in new membos. Rudd says, Rob, I noticed that Mercan is an acting judge. How convenient is that? It is pretty convenient, isn't it? And I noticed that too. And I don't know if that's just a New York thing. He's kind of been an acting judge for a while now, right? He's been like sitting on many Trump cases for years. So is it just a thing that you're just an acting judge for like years? Like, can you go through the process to actually make it official? Or is that official? I don't know what the status on the ground is, but it feels weird. Knox is here, defense attorney in Texas. Says, happy Monday, all. How the heck are they going to drag this out for 2 to 3 more weeks? Call the paper company rep as a witness. Hilarious. Call the paper company guy. Isn't it true that you put the toner in that copy machine? Mm-hmm. And did you know that that toner was going to print out a felony? Did Trump tell you to replace the toner? You're going to jail. All right. What's up? Kalim H, membo for 3 months, says, Rob, look up the SCOTUS case from 2012, McDonald versus U.S. Man, it's not ringing a bell, Kalim. Thanks for being a membo for 3 months. I'll have to look it up. Yeah, not ringing a bell. I was just graduating law school, 2012. Got licensed 2013. That's right. Yeah. Good to see you, Kalim. Thanks for that. Hey, Knox says, this whole keep him in New York City is backfiring as he is greeted very warmly everywhere outside the courtroom. If they jail him, it's going to be a landslide in November. I think you're right about that. I think you're right about that. I worry about actual, violence if something like that happens. Like it would be a maddening event in American history, and I hope that they don't do that. Peng says, what's up? Says, hey, have a great day. Thank you, Peng. Have a great day to you. It's been a beautiful day. It's a beautiful Monday. Fresh new week. Love that. We got Membo for 11 months. 1 more month to our 1-year anniversary. Glad you're here, Peng. We got Drunk Pinata, a new supporter. Man, Drunk Pinata. That sounds fun. We got Trekker, also in the house. Good to see you, Trekker. Thanks for joining us as another supporter. We'll see you in the morning as well. Hey, Rubos are here. Says they're over at RubosSaltShop.com. Are you still eating Morton's salt? Oh, gosh. Rubos say thank you, Rob, for another great live stream. May God continue to bless you and all of the Watcher family. Here's a meme. They say, here's one. Juan the Con Mercan. What do you guys think about that? So we were inspired by Elliot, who is now doing polls for nicknames. We had a bunch of good ones this morning. Juan the Con, kind of stuck. It has a nice cadence to it. So especially if you go Juan the Con Mercan. Now, I know his name is Merchan, but I think there was another one, like the Merchan of, what was the Merchan of Retribution, all these other good names. Is great. So Juan the Con Mercan, if you ever wondered what true judicial corruption looks like, put that in the dictionary next to corrupt. Hey, what's up, Kalim? Says, read the full opinion from Chief Roberts on the McDonald U.S. case. Thank you, Kalim. Yeah, it's not even ringing a bell, but it's been a while. Salty Sarge, President Trump went to Miami in F1 race yesterday over on Rumble, says, F1 let him visit one driver. It was Lando Norris. Yesterday was his first win. After the win, he said the Trump visit was his good luck charm. It's pretty amazing, right? It's gold, baby. Trump shows up, the dude wins. It's just like, all I do is win no matter what. Be Controversial says, I still can't wrap my head around this case. So for the felonies to exist, Trump has to be guilty of a conspiracy. But there is no conspiracy charged. And so the jury cannot convict him of this, but these felonies still exist. Yeah. It's because he didn't actually have to, the judge said he doesn't actually have to commit the conspiracy. He just had to intend to commit the conspiracy. It's interesting times. And that's their justification for, historic prosecution shattering 234 years of American precedent. It's wild. Sandy says, and it's like, okay, no other president signed an NDA. So they keep saying Trump is so bad. So no other president signed. Bill Clinton didn't sign a bunch of stuff with his, whatever. Of course they did. He didn't get prosecuted for anything. They are instead using a sandwich approach. Sandy says, look at the case. It is opposite of normal. They're using a sandwich approach. Bad news placed inside of two pieces of good news. Normally we get the strongest evidence first and finish strong. Today was the meat. Now we get Orange Man bad for 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, like, what's next? Like, okay, Stormy's going to come in. Karen McDougal's going to come in. Michael Cohen's going to come in. It's like, oh, gosh. They're going to bring in Weisselberg, and they're going to call him a liar. And they're going to say he's been convicted of perjury. That's going to be their Hail Mary. Sandy says, presidential immunity matters here if you listen to Amy Coney Barrett questions about what evidence is precluded, and you see Trump's motion to delay the trial on that issue until SCOTUS. I see what you're saying. Yeah, look, Trump was the president when these checks were cut. So we don't know how far and extensive the immunity provision will go. I do believe there will be presidential immunity, but how far does it go? Is it really broad? Then maybe this is all precluded because he cut the checks in 2017 when he was the sitting president. Hey, here's one from McDonald. Thanks for grabbing this for us. This is from Donut. So here's this case, McDonald versus United States. Here's the holding. It was vacated, remanded 8-0. It's the federal bribery statute. The question, the holding, it says it makes it a crime for a public official to receive or accept anything of value in exchange for being influenced in an official act. Someone tell that to Fanny. An official act is the decision or action of a question, matter, case, cause, suit, proceeding, or controversy. That question or matter must involve a formal exercise of the government power, must be something specific and focused. Now, setting up a meeting, talking to another official, or organizing an event without more does not fit that definition of an official act. Because jury instructions in the case of former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell were erroneous, and these errors are harmless beyond a reasonable doubt, McDonnell's convictions are vacated. Okay, interesting one. So, yeah, Bob McDonnell, I remember that name. So he got off on this bribery charge. They said that was bribery, and it wasn't enough. Yeah. So maybe SCOTUS does something very similar in this case. Thank you for that clip, and thanks for the comments on it. Caleb, yeah, my bad. It was 2016. We got that. Caleb, thanks for that. Thanks for flagging that for us. I still am going to look into that. I'm wondering why you're bringing it up. You've read the full opinion from Roberts. Do you think that it is something that's applicable to these current prosecutions? This old guy, yeah, a toner felony. Now that's funny right there. Well, I will tell you, when I run out of toner, I do want to murder someone. I do want to commit multiple felonies. So that is true. Toner's out. Sometimes you can shake it up, put it back in, and it'll work again. But if you need to print something immediately, there's no toner. Feel very murderous. What's up? Sandy says, I posted a comment in this video because it exceeded the chat character. New York State cannot jail Trump. Here's what Sandy says. Rob, once upon a time, Secret Service was under the jurisdiction of the Treasury. They are currently under the jurisdiction of Homeland, and the Department of Corrections in New York has no supremacy over Homeland. The Secret Service cannot relinquish control of or protect it to any other law enforcement agency. New York State Department of Correction would have to cede control of their facility, not a jail cell or block, the entire facility, to the federal government. Because it would not be a single facility, it would amount to abolishing State Department of Corrections, and that requires an act of Congress. This is why the accommodations cannot be met. Hey, and shout out to our friend Amuse, another great follow on X and a good dude, says Justice Merchan has been negotiating with the New York Department of Corrections to discuss options for jailing Trump. Woo. Oh, wow. They said, no, we cannot provide Trump accommodations. Even if there are rumors that He's discussed sentencing him to 30 days of home confinement, wear an ankle monitor. Like, they'll try something. Secret Service has objected to any sort of tracking device. Mercan's adamant that the punishment provide maximum humiliation because he's a piece of work. And his daughter, works for Democrats. It's sick. It's sick. It makes my blood boil. These people are sick. Salty says Jack and Don Juan are hired hatchet men. If they lose, they will just disappear to the third world with enough to buy an island. A bunch of money, yeah. Jack Smith will get paid off. Don Juan, Don the Con, Juan the Con, Mercan. They'll get book deals. They'll get on MSNBC, whatever. All right, Allison. What's up, Allison? Over on Rumble says, Rob, thank you for all you do. Even though YouTube won't let me comment on your streams, I listen every day. I miss you, chat. Just realized I can now go to Rumble. Allison Cole. Allison, I think, oh my gosh, I think I remember looking you up like a year ago. I think like K Bean was this K Bean telling, can we unban you kind of a thing? And I've looked for your name like a million times on the back end. I don't know why you cannot chat on YouTube. I don't know why, unless I'm not finding your username. But anyways, I'm glad that you made it over to Rumble. If you have a different username that you might be under, I think there was somebody that got accidentally muted on YouTube, and I've been trying to unmute that person, but every time I try to find that person, I can't find them. So that might be you, Allison. So it may have been a year ago, but I'm really glad that you're still here. So awesome. If you need anything, you know where to find me. What's up? Thanks for being here, Allison. Really glad you made it back. What's up? Rob is here. Says, so shouldn't it be easy to convict them of all the crimes based on the precedent, their standard of justice they are creating? Use their standards to prosecute with Republican AGs from red states. Well, the problem is that they don't have any standards. That's the problem. They have standards for whatever suits them. Like, there is no standard of justice. The standard is prosecute Trump. Stop Trump. That's the standard. So you can't use that standard against them unless you decide to you have to take over those institutions of power. Like, they're not going to say, my point is Judge Mercan is not going to say, okay, well, Joe Biden also had an NDA, and so we're going to prosecute him and hold him accountable to the same because I'm an even Stevens kind of guy. No, they're not. They have no standards. So you have to replace, those institutions and take control of those institutions. Then you can apply the inverse standard of justice to them. Which is sad that that's where our country's going. But if the rules don't matter anymore, I'd rather have our side be in charge, right, than them. MAGA Hat says Andy McCarthy says Trump should show up to court every Monday with $10K. Just drop it. Here you go, Judge. Here's 10 grand. Enjoy. And he says, I'm going to use it all right now. He goes outside. He's like, and he just drops it. Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, Karen McDougal, David Pecker, and it all goes down the whole list. He walks in. Here's your 10 grand, Judge. Let's get this trial started. In pennies. Yeah, he pays it in pennies too. Wait, it's legal tender. What's your problem? All right, my friends, thank you so much for the great donos. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday. Of course, very grateful to be going through this experience with you together. And I really think that that's what this is. This is a moment in American history, a moment in time that we get to spend living together as best we can. And so I'm really grateful and honored to go through it with you. And I mean that. So we are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's say hello to our friends on X before we wrap it up and go on over there. Who is joining us on the X platform? We always like to say hello to our friends on X. It's a free speech platform. So let's see. We have some comments. Hey, Drunk Pinata's in the house. Says, oh, you might be interested in this legal take. I probably am. You know how I can tell? Because it came from Julie Kelly. Oh, no. What did I just do? We don't want that. Oh, no. Oh, I botched the settings. All right. So I'll fix this a little bit later. I'm going to be very small for the rest of this. You might be interested in this legal take. Probably am because it came from Julie Kelly. Julie Kelly's amazing. And that sounds awesome. James says U.S. radium was on the site of the courthouse. What on earth is that? What on earth is that? Hey, what's up? Fred Petamonte says, Rob, that SCOTUS case was Jack Smith. That was the Jack Smith case? Danny McWilliams. Oh, is that the Jack Smith case? Oh, okay. Yeah, Danny McWilliams. What's up? One question. What will the judge's starting salary be with CNN? Probably a lot. Danny McWilliams. Where is the ABA? Who knows? Gen X says, top billing for Dog Digger, Love Rockhound on credits from Gen X. What's up, Gen X? And Salty Sarge says, Juan is screwing all of us. Yeah, good comments over there on X. And we got some other ones. What's up? Shout out to Silicon Valley Reject with some memes over there. And it's good to see everybody. Okay, my friends, that is it for us on X and on this show today. And boy, look at this screen. It's so tiny. So I feel like a little person, like not like that, but like just like a little, boxed in, like, let me out, like let me out of here. All right. Anyways, so we're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I'm going to fix the picture-in-picture in a minute. We also have robertgovea.com if you want to catch any of our PDFs. They're there, our merch stores over there, our calendars over there, our newsletters over there. Mini Rob, yeah. We got robertgovea.com and watcherlodge.com. We have our Watcher Meetup. Please RSVP if you're serious about coming, you're like actually coming. RSVP, watcherlodge.com. We also have Sovereignty Saturdays. The last 5 of those are up now at watcherlodge.com. So if you missed any of those, go back and catch the replays. That, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are coming back here tomorrow to get into it all again. It's going to be day 13. It's going to be trial underway, and we can't wait to get into it. And to do that, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends, and an amazing sleep. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.